welcome to Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness with your hosts Chris Noble and Bill Peratzman. On this podcast, Chris and I offer a spontaneous, ongoing conversation about how music is intertwined with healing and consciousness. We hope this podcast will cultivate your knowledge and curiosity, inspire your own study and practice of the musical and healing arts, and that your contribution to advancing world consciousness will be satisfying for you and transformative to those around you. Let's get started. AI and music, which it extends to all kinds of things. So, Chris and I were doing a little show prep for this. And when people hear AI and then followed by something creative like AI music, AI art, AI, fill in the blank, deep fake, there's this sort of pejorative that goes with it. But Chris has some insights today on the kinds of capabilities that AI brings to creative people, specifically musicians like us, that I hadn't considered before. So this is an interesting topic, and it sort of bleeds over into something that I have been sort of researching, spatial audio. You know that setting on your phone? What is spatial audio, right? What is this? So we're going to get into all of that today and see where this leads us. Obviously, we're talking about music for healing. So the focus here is on how can these tools help in the music healing space, sound healing space, right? Yeah. So Chris, share with me what you share with us, with the audience again, what you shared with me just a minute ago.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good point, Bill. Like it's gonna help us a lot in the therapeutic music sector, but it really is. This conversation is going to be for all creatives, honestly.
Yeah,
and everyone.
True.
It's really this. I was just coming back from a gig at my old college. They hired me back to play their convocation ceremonies with the graduates every year. And it's a great gig and I love it. I've been going for many, many years. And this time around, the president of the college was doing his, typical address to the graduates. And in it, he was really focusing on AI because the graduating class, we're recording this in the year 2024. Sometimes I get that wrong, by the way. I literally missed the year. I'm like, well, wow, we're in a parallel universe here now. But I got it this time. Anyway, so what was really fascinating was that this class graduating this year in 2024 was really the first year that they had gone through their programming in their school with AI to a more advanced degree, because ChatGPT was released in November 2022, as far as I know. And so now we're in 2024, these students had that access to really palpable, really engaging conversational AI. And obviously, like we all know ChatGPT now, what it's capable of. And it really got me thinking, because in his speech, he talks about how he's not a creative person and he loves to create music with AI. He loves to generate poems with AI. And he even does crazy stuff, which we all know is possible, where AI will translate. He did a video of himself speaking to a school in Italy and wanted to send it to that school in Italy. So he got the AI to translate from English to Italian using his voice, overdubbed his English voice with Italian, using his own voice, and then synced it to his lips.
So I can speak Italian now.
You can speak Italian now, Bill, and anyone listening, you can speak any language you want with your own voice. When you record your video, plug it into this AI app, and
okay. So listeners, all your comments have got to be in Klingon now, and they've got to be audio files. We'll have AI do the transcription and the translation back into English.
Oh my God, it's the Wild West out there, but I find it quite fun. And really what I was, I think a lot of creatives and musicians and whatnot, we do get a little freaked out when we hear, and also when we hear the quality that AI is already able to produce. I was telling Bill just before we started recording, I was on a camping trip just before I was doing these graduation ceremonies, and my friend on the camping trip he's an actor, he's not a musician, so he doesn't have musical training, and he wanted to create a series of very funny comedy songs for a play that he was doing. So he played me these when we were camping, and I was blown away. They sounded very well, like written, performed, recorded. The quality of the recording was like something you hear on the radio.
Did he sing
And
with them, or did he have a AI generate the voice?
AI generated the voice,
Wow.
and you get to choose the genre. You get to choose the style of voice. You get to do all these fun prompts, right? That really create pretty incredible music. And so I was blown away. I really enjoyed it. I was singing. The songs were so catchy. I was singing them in my head all camping trip. I mean, it was one of the highlights actually of our trip because these songs were
Nice.
hilarious. It was really fun. So I was experiencing this really interesting side to AI, and I wasn't feeling too threatened though at the same time because and there's other things like, a quick little thing for our listeners, because I know if you're listening, you're likely, pretty interested in music, obviously. And for any musicians out there or anyone who wants to create with music, AI also can help on the post production side. It can help with the editing. It can help with mixing it. It can help with mastering your music, and it also can even give you analysis on your own mixes. So you can put something you've mixed into this AI, and they'll say, "Here's what you want to change. Here's what you want to do," based off of its incredible algorithms. So it's like it's opening up a lot, and there's sure the fear of, oh my God, is it taking over the complete art form of music? But I could tell you right now, I don't think so. When I was listening to the AI generated music, and I was also mentioning this to Bill before we recorded, that I also pulled out my instrument. I have a little melodica I take with me camping, and I started playing along to the AI music, and it added a lot to it. It really did bring the song to, as all my friends commented on when they heard it. They're like, "Oh yeah, it got even better when you started playing on it," and even as AI advances and becomes an amazing composer, in my mind, I'm like, well, what's it doing? AI is basing everything on what already exists, right?
Right, right.
In the realm of what's on the internet, what can it learn from and extrapolate from to then produce its creation. But with humans, which is what the president of my old college was touching on in his speech, is that you can't ever get AI to do the same thing that human intuition, human passion, human insight, and of course human creativity that comes from let's say other dimensions of reality, essentially. And AI, although it will have its own form of creativity, it will never be a human form of creativity, and therefore you're always going to get a different product when a human is involved versus a pure AI. And that will always be, I think, a selling feature and a uniqueness about being human that will never change. And so I actually started to realize, I'm like, I don't feel threatened at all by AI in the art sphere. I think it's really going to help because, as I was saying to Bill before we recorded, the price points, and this is all my engineer friends, I love you, and I'm definitely going to always work with you. I mean that. However, for lower budget productions, AI can really make the difference between you completing and being able to put a production out into the public sphere or not at all, because it's very cost effective and it can really be an amazing tool. So, you know what I'm saying? Like it's one of the things I've heard a lot about these AI experts is that AI is here, and if we want to ignore it and we want to try to stay away from it, that's your decision. But someone else is going to use it. Someone else is going to take it, and it's like you may as well embrace this. You may as well find how can it help and benefit you in your creative life. So there's so much here to unpack, but that's kind of the general summary of what I experienced over the last couple of weeks here, and it's been really wild because even just last night, like I finished my rabbit hole of research and found a couple of really great sites that can basically become my post production for
Right.
all of my
Yeah.
music, which is amazing. And it's the same for you, Bill. Like these creative ideas, we can now, instead of having to think of like, okay, which engineer can I work with and hire, and what's their budget, and it's always going to be higher because they're amazing at what they do, and I want to pay that for them because they deserve that, but I don't always have that kind of a budget. So what are we going to do? Well, thank you,
So
AI.
I have a question for you. You hire an engineer on a project, and let's say it's a grant. If the engineer uses the AI tools in the background to do his job or her job, is that something that they can discount for if they're using AI? Does it save that much time?
It's a good question, right? I mean, I would put this out to our engineers out there, anyone that
Yeah.
works in the sphere. Let us know in the comments, please, what you would think about this. I mean, I'm just gonna like guess here, but essentially, it's gonna save some time in a lot of ways. but in a weird way, it might open up more time for other things that you can tweak and you can
Sure,
work
like
on.
spatial audio, which we'll get to in a minute, right?
Exactly.
Because you can all the mixing and mastering, if it can be done 80%, even 90%, um, and let you put your own signature on top of that. Why wouldn't you do that, right? I'd do that,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? I mean, I may have to because engineers are expensive, especially as you pointed out, the good ones.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's one sort of, it's not so much a concern, but it's a question that I have about AI. Um, and I'll stay with the studio sort of approach here because that's a sort of a combined effort where you have real human beings doing something and real human engineers doing something, and AI being able to assist. Um, what if you want to do something new? And the engineer says, well, we're going to do this. And all of a sudden, that new thing that you've done that sounds amazing gets undone by AI because AI doesn't recognize it. Right. So the creative opportunity is here for us to be able to say, how do we sort of balance this, which might be, which might get down to the real time recording. It might be that you're using AI on the actual live audio feed to make sure that it fits some parameters or not. Right. Now, I don't know an engineer that would do that responsibly. Everybody likes raw tracks. Right. But you know what I'm saying? So how do we adjust the balance? Like, how do we turn it up, turn it down in a way that matters to the final product? And the
Well,
corollary
you're
to that is, I don't want to sound like everybody else out there. Even if the mix is perfect and the mastering's amazing, what if I wind up sounding like John Tesh or somebody? And like, I don't want to sound like John Tesh. But that's what AI knew because John's got more albums than I do.
well, that's the thing is I still think it's helping you on a level that is a bit more after the style's been created, and
Yeah.
after the tone of your music has really been solidified. Because I was thinking about this a lot last night too, where I was imagining the recording process with AI. I don't think that's going to change much because AI can't go into a middle of a forest and record a bunch of stones and rocks and then create a beat out of it, which I've done in some of my songs. Like,
Right.
sure, it can grab samples from somewhere else and do the same thing, but it's not going to be the same because again, I'm going out and I'm recording a unique experience in a unique space. It'll never sound ever the same.
We should play with
So
that, So, like I have a recording of Raw Rain. I'd love to push that through different kinds of AI, shall I call them filters,
sure.
and see what the results are and what I like best. Whether I like the natural sound, whether I like the natural sound enhanced to be, I don't know, more present.
Yeah, and these are just like some of the things that they're doing are simply just going to be compressing,
Yeah.
equalizing, putting the basic effects that we would normally do anyway, just to enhance the audio. And again, it's just doing it for you. So
Yeah.
it's not likely even going to change too much of your sound. I think you can also have those options, but I really think it's more of the for me, like I'm a good enough mixer to an extent. All I'm really looking
Right.
for is
Yeah.
that polish. I
Yeah.
need that, like, but it makes a huge. We all know that polish is everything.
That's everything.
It really is. And so if AI can give me that polish, I don't feel at any point like I'm losing my sound. If anything, it's just helping me get it to a place where I want it to be.
Right.
And but to the first part of your question, Bill, I think it's a really good point. So if you're, let's say wanting to create something very new in terms of a mixing style as well, right? And let's say it's the spatial audio that we'll get into in a second. That's, I think, where AI will take a bit more of a backseat for that first project, for that first time. And it's really important to have that human element where you're going into uncharted territory. I still think, though, as AI advances, we'll find new ways to bring it along for the ride because it's just like this really handy companion that I'm honestly kind of falling more and more in love with, and I express my love all the time to my AI, just like it would any a friend or child or a coworker or whatever. And I've just been having the best time with
Oh, it's
AI.
totally saved my butt in two projects already.
Exactly.
One where we just had impossible noise and we had to recreate what the speakers were saying using AI in their voices. and another one where we had just a terrible recording environment. We had vocals and guitar blended. We wanted to extract the vocals from that, and thanks to Lala, we were able to do that one. Lala is out there. Everybody, go find it. Lala.ai, a great tool for being able to uh, pull parts out of a mix. Like if you're a DJ and you want to, or you're a karaoke DJ, for example, you want to take an actual, not a dumb karaoke recording, but if you want to take the actual song and pull the singer out of it so you can karaoke to that, you can do that with Lala. Probably shouldn't say that, but there it is, and go
Love
Lala,
that.
you know,
That's really cool. I wrote
right?
that down. That's great.
Yeah. So yeah, you're a DJ, you know this. Um, there's there's another aspect to this though, and I wonder because let's face it, people, it's really hard to get a good recording, especially if you're in some crazy environment. And this happens all the time. So I play in a praise band and I want to have a reference recording. So I bring my Zoom recorder and I leave it on the floor and I get my reference recording, and it sounds terrible, but it's enough for me. I wonder if an AI tool could take that terrible recording, which has got way too much bass because I'm way too close to the subwoofer, and you know it's on the floor, so it's missing. I wonder if AI could take that, turn it into something that's listenable, you know, quickly,
Probably. Let's be honest.
right?
Probably.
That would be so helpful. You know, not that we're releasing this stuff to the public, but just so that we can hear things accurately, right?
But it makes even the difference that you may be able to release it to the public, maybe not on Spotify, but let's say you have a Patreon or like
Oh
those
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you can
you know
throw
like
some back.
you could, but still it's still quality, it's still good,
Yeah,
it still has more umph to it, and I think you're right. I couldn't see why AI wouldn't, right?
yeah.
It's learning so
It
fast.
seems to know, you know, like how to do these things. Plus, it learns from what it knows,
Exactly.
or what it. Now begs the next question, which how many companies out there have AI audio tools for mixing and mastering right now, and how did they learn? And do they learn from one another? Right? Is this a shared environment, or are they putting a paywall around their version of it that, like Lander, uh, if you can use that one and it does everything you want, great. But if somebody else with a different tool that you pumped your stuff through comes back with a different sounding mix that you like better, how do they share?
I don't know if they do or they don't. It's a great question, but the nice thing is it's really just our benefit because
Yeah.
we get to pick and choose. And again, the price points for this AI stuff are just nowhere near what
Oh,
it is to go into a studio and get an engineer and all that kind of stuff.
it's
It's just
embarrassing actually because
yeah.
they're so cheap. But imagine what can happen. So this is the really intriguing question. And the reason we're doing this show at all, like everything else that AI is touching, productivity, like crank it out, making Teslas, I don't know. Once human beings are freed from all of the daily grind of whatever it is that they do, whether that's making cars or running a farm or uh, mixing and mastering music, then what will we do with our excess capacity, right? And are we going to sit around and consume more content? I don't think so, right? That's not making us any better as human beings. What will we do then? And it amazes me that there's already stuff happening on the edges of music that's going to become much more mainstream really soon. And we mentioned at the beginning, the spatial audio, that little thing you can, if you dig around on your phone, you'll see spatial audio is there. Yeah, you need to have special headphones or whatever to hear this stuff well. But spatial audio is one of those things that mixing and mastering engineers might well be able to do. Anybody who's listening can play with Ableton Live and get a plug-in right now that you can use in live performance. But let's talk about spatial audio just for a second, because DJs have been using this for a while, right? Have you met a DJ
Definitely.
that uses it yet?
I have not, but what I've come across more is film and video
Yes,
games.
right.
Big for that. And it
Big.
actually, we'll get into this more, but I get the sense that it could even be more impactful and popular in those areas than in music. Of course, though, music's got some
VR,
really
of course. You know,
VR
anything.
is big with that. But Bill, I'd love you to give the description of like what
Yeah,
is. Let's just
what
go
is
through
spatial audio?
what is it? What the heck is spatial audio?
So I've been fascinated by this stuff ever since quadraphonic sound came along. You remember that? Four speakers, and it was like, whoa, not stereo anymore. Four speakers. And my grandfather had a quadraphonic system, and there was a little joystick. This was so cool. And with the joystick, you could make the sound orbit between the four speakers. So if you sat in the middle of the room and spun the joystick in a circle, the sound would move around you in a circle in the same direction. Spin it the other way, it would go the other way. And this is the very first genesis of spatial audio. And then, of course, now we have Dolby. And if you've been to a 4D movie theater, you can hear sounds moving around you in space, like a bullet that is shot at you will whiz by your ear. You can actually hear it whizzing by. And in some, uh, I don't know, they add other effects to that too. You can get a little burst of air if you're in an amusement park that has that. So I know Disney uses spatial audio. Um, I was thinking about it. Remember the planetarium laser light shows? Have you guys ever seen one of those? They had hundreds of speakers around the dome, and you could make the laser track with the speakers. It wasn't very capable. The laser was much quicker, but in an environment where you have that capability, you could identify speakers and move the sound, theoretically with them. But spatial audio has grown up, so it's full immersion and done well. You can hear sounds that are below you, behind you, above you, that come towards you and then split and go around you. That are above you, come down and then drip off your head down to the floor. Anything that you can imagine visually, you can now do with spatial audio. And while 90% or more of the stuff that's out there right now that you can see is programmed, the DJ's taken the time to program their set with spatial audio immersion built into it. So it's processed and played back. And of course, you need a speaker array to do this, 6 speakers or more. But the software and hardware are off board. So you're working on your own laptop, basically, that's handling the spatial audio signal processing as the tracks play. It can be very cool. So I'm curious about this in live performance, of course. I can imagine let's just say, the piano's kind of complicated. Let's take a single tone instrument like a flute. And if you're sitting in the audience and listening to the flute player on stage, spatial audio would let you split that direction in front of you and make the flute player's sound sort of walk around you if you wanted it to, or come up over the top and drop down behind you, or do both simultaneously, or split and sound stereo, very left and right separate, right? So you could pan left and right hard and get that, wow, there's 3 flute players right now? What's happening? Maybe add a fourth in the back, maybe have a whole symphony of flute players coming from different directions. Uh, it's really amazing to me that we can do these things with the signal processing we have. Obviously, AI is fast. NVIDIA is doing really well right now. This has been much, much too long of a monologue, but I would love to be able to have that control on stage if I were the flute player in real time, to be able to make my sound move around the room in concert with my music. Would that not
So
be cool?
cool. It'd be so cool. It adds like a whole new effect, obviously, to the
Yeah,
music.
yeah.
It becomes like an articulation of your playing and your performance is like how you want to
Yep.
pan it or how
Dude, you
you
got
want
it
to,
right away.
right?
Because isn't expression part of music?
A little bit.
Right? And isn't this another way of expressing music?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, now you're making me think into more the therapeutic, let's say the meditation
Here we go. Yes.
sides of things, because oh my gosh, like this is for me where it becomes very practical. I want, first of all, full nature ambience with spatial audio. Why not?
Right, right. So
I
you
want
can
the
see
bird
the
to fly right
bird
by
fly by,
my
yeah, and the
right.
creek beside you, and then the
Yeah,
wind coming through the
but
trees above you.
yeah, exactly, right? And something, the rustle of the leaves beneath me or something, like
Yeah,
whatever. Like that full immersion, I feel like that would add so much to the meditation experience. It really, if you're in a busy city, which I've been in for the last month, I could really go for some spatial audio.
right. And
you
immersion in that.
know?
I mean,
Oh, that's
headphones, you
great.
can do it, but like the immersion room where it's maybe totally dark. I don't know, maybe you have visual, but it's a VR thing where you can then uh, augment the therapeutic practice, maybe augment the musical experience.
Well, if the visuals something, whether it's soothing nature tones or it's maybe like fractal imagery that's very psychedelic, or if it's anything, right? Like I've heard different frequencies being played at like different intervals of light strobes and stuff, as
Yes.
long as you're not epileptic or anything, like it's pretty good. Of course, there's a million myriad of things. I know companies that specialize in the visual side of that.
Right. Right.
And
Visual's
I think
big.
pretty sure in California, there's a couple institutes that do some really interesting equivalents to this sort of sound therapy with visual
Yeah, it's true. Right here
frequencies.
at UCSD, Qualcomm funds a thing called Sonic Lab, I believe is what it's called.
Ah, that's the yes. I've heard of
Right.
that.
And they
Yeah.
do the audio stuff. They have a black box. They can do that. And they also do the visual combined with the
Mm,
audio, which is, I mean, it must be amazing, right? It's summer. We can't get a hold of those people right now. It's hard. I've been trying because I want to
ah.
know, right?
Well, imagine, even in schools, because my friend a while back came to me with this idea that she was pitching, and it didn't go through, but I know these things are happening, which is they're called peace rooms instead of detention rooms in the school system.
Ah,
And they so she's in Illinois and wants to do that with the Illinois school program. And there's a lot of initiative for that because they've already implemented meditation into like Chicago schools and stuff. And
yep.
I've seen immense benefits, huge benefits with violence and all these other things going very, very quickly on the decline, which is amazing. So imagine in these peace rooms having these headphones that play the spatial audio. That's a pretty cool experience. You get to sit and be fully immersed. And I think that's amazing.
Now
So,
add other people. So imagine that you and other people are in a concert hall and there's nothing on stage. And the sound you're going to hear is going to be 432 hertz, just that one tone. Pretty boring, right? But what if that 432 hertz tone were played by other instruments, like instruments that we recognize, as well as instruments that we can create digitally?
yeah, it is an A note.
It's a note, but it's now a symphony of other instruments making this note. Now imagine if you can move those instruments around you, like you were suggesting, Chris. So you've got like the trumpets are behind you on the right, and the violins are over on the left, and some synthesizer that you can't recognize is in front of you on the right. And above you, there's like birds chirping 432 hertz, right? Um, and now imagine that you can rhythmatize this instead of just being one tone, that it comes in rhythm from different places in the room at different volumes.
I wonder if the overtones that because everything would
Now you're
create
on it,
something, right? The
right?
overtones there would create something really wild because for those listening and watching, we in music there's a term called timbre. Looks like it's spelled like timber kind of thing, but it's pronounced timbre, and it's basically the quality of the sound that instrument produces. So, for example, you can play the exact same note on a piano and then the exact same note on a violin. They're going to sound very different, obviously,
Yeah.
right? So that's timbre is just the quality of that instrument is clearly making the same frequency, the same note, but it's making it sound completely different. So if you've got all these different sounds playing the same note or the same frequency, but they're all going through your head, two things. One, they're going to sound different because of the timbre, even though it's the same note. But then because of the timbre, they're different frequencies. They're playing the same frequency, but because of the quality, there's these things called overtones, and that's what creates this sort of nuance and the uniqueness of that sound. Which then I wondered, does it then kind of create almost binaurals or something
Yes.
like,
Yes. That's
right?
where I was going, right?
Amazing.
Um, that's why symphony concerts are so incredibly powerful because 80 instruments on the stage playing 5, 8, 10 different pitches at the same time create all these overtones. And all these overtones are going to create binaural beats because overtones are not perfect. When you talk about a sine wave that's 430 hertz, it's perfect. There's no overtones. You play another sine wave alongside that. There's no overtones because the waves are perfect at 432 hertz. Now you can stagger their peaks and valleys a little bit, and you get some binaural beats. But we're talking about this occurring naturally. If you have 5 trumpets playing, they all sound like they're in tune. But if they are microtonally not in tune, you get a binaural beat off not only the pitch but the overtones. And it's a very slow one. It might be 1 or 2 hertz, but it's enough,
And I've
right?
heard that the big healing, so to speak, or the benefits that we experience with sound therapies is really it comes down to the overtones more than anything.
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah, yeah.
frequent the free, I've heard that that's really the most important thing. The frequency itself is, but it's really the overtones surrounding that frequency
Yep.
that are the real magic.
So you know what a Hammond drawbar looks like, right? Those
Yeah,
racks
but
of drawbars on a B3.
right. So for the audience, what does that look like though?
Yeah. So these old-fashioned electronic organs back in the day with spinning tone generators that weighed tons because they were, it was all mechanical, electromechanical. Um, on a Hammond organ, you can hit a note with all the drawbars pushed in and then pull the drawbar that makes that note happen at the, let's say, concert pitch, whatever that is. So if you're playing middle C, you pull the right drawbar and you're going to hear middle C. If you pull the drawbar that's 2 to the left of that fundamental tone, you're going to hear middle C down 2 octaves. No, you're going to hear it down an octave. Sorry. You pull the second one, you're going to hear it down a fifth. So it's still middle C, but these are overtones of the fundamental pitch. Same thing goes going the other way. I don't know how many drawbars are in a Hammond because I haven't seen one in a long time, but there's a bunch, and you can pull the bars and get the overtones. This is not a new idea. Pipe organs work the same way. And if you happen to have access to a pipe organ, you can go and pull stops, and you can pull the 8-foot stop and get the fundamental pitch. You pull the 4-foot, you get the one that's an octave higher. You can pull the 2 3/4, which doesn't seem to make any sense, and you get the 10th. It's like and don't quote me on that, correct me if I'm wrong, people, but the idea of being able to mix overtones at will has been with us since at least before Bach, right? Because they
Definitely.
had stops on organs that did this. This was part of the way things worked. So now we are circling back in our dark room with 132 hertz playing. What if we can then, in real time, not only adjust all the stuff we talked about, but also adjust the overtones and how present they are? What would that sound like? Right?
That's
And
wild.
and Chris, you've pointed out exactly where I was going with this, which is if the overtones are the healing thing, if that's the stuff that creates the shift that we want mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and we can control that with spatial audio, wow.
Oh my gosh, this goes into the psychedelic treatments, right? And the
Totally.
therapies, because what are they doing when they're taking these psilocybin therapies now where they sit down and lay down with a therapist for 3 to 4 hours? They're listening with headphones. They've got headphones on, they're listening to something.
Yeah.
And imagine if that something is just more now in the lines of spatial audio so that they become more immersed and feel, well, just better, have a more effective result ultimately.
Now, you ready for the final icing on the cake for
Let's
this?
do it.
Okay, so I started with that joystick and my grandfather's quadraphonic system, right? What if we gave everyone in the room something like a joystick, but in addition to making it go on a two-dimensional plane, the thing could also make it go on a three-dimensional plane? So you, as the listener, could have control over your listening experience, but not just in point of origin, like where the sound is coming from, but what sounds are blended in, how they make you feel. Like all of these things could be manipulated in real time. Now that's all cool, but who's going to be able to? What kind of joystick would you need, right? It'd be pretty crazy if you had 55 different sources of that 432 hertz sound and different rhythms and just whatever all this stuff, right? It could go nuts. So here's the cool part. You ready for this? You've seen those skull caps, right? The EKG skull caps
Yeah.
and the electrodes they tape on your chest and the things they put on your fingers and like all of the ways that we can investigate how the body is responding. There's a thing called neurofeedback that actually uses the brain's response to tones to change the way that synapses in the brain works and actually do real-time neuroplasticity. But I'm suggesting here that you come into this concert fully equipped, right? You've got the bodysuit on, and once the tone starts to happen, your experience of that tone is controlled by your physiological and neurological responses, which could be different from mine. So sitting in the same concert hall with 132 playing in this way, our concert is completely customized for us based on how we're responding at any given millisecond during the performance. Now, is that AI or what?
But it almost, it's weirdly beyond that too. There's AI involved in it, but it's not just AI doing that.
It's you.
That's very much the human creation. You're the one controlling that experience. AI is almost the thing that delivers you the options.
Right. So it's responding, without thought, without you having to think it, although that might be a component of it too. We already have the kind of crazy implants that could track your eyes on the screen and other things
Oh
like that.
yeah, 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 for sure.
Um, isn't this the future of music? And if Chris, if it's you on the stage performing in real time, knowing that the 100 people in the room are all experiencing their own private version of what you're playing at that moment, um, is that not a crazy ass, you know,
It's wild. It's
it's
so
it's
wild.
it's incredibly nuts. But why not? We have the technology,
Well,
right?
it reminds me even of like things like, because this is where it's so cool. I just get, if anything, I'm getting more inspired with AI these days. And I think about, for example, live performances. When the heck is that ever going to become fully AI? It can't. Live performances have to have human. And so again, we're not going to go out of business here. It's not. I don't see that happening. And because of that, it's like I get excited for it makes me think of concerts like Max Richter's Sleep concert, where
Yeah.
he did an 8 hour performance for people to literally fall asleep to. But not just that, they had headphones on for a lot of it. And again, I'm thinking, what if you did an experience like that, but with spatial audio, right?
Right.
Within the headphones of the listeners lying down. Because I think about now, oh, when I do a sound bath, or a sound bath collaboration, how cool would that sound bath then go? It would go to a next level, because with the sound bath, it is still important for your full body to absorb the frequencies, much like it normally would. But then with the headphones and the spatial audio, I feel like it gives your mind, and perhaps
Yes.
then triggers your imagination, which triggers your
Yes.
spirit and everything
Yes.
like that. And then that sends you on a whole other journey while your body still receives the medicinal frequencies. Well, that's
And
wild.
doing that with other people in the same space. I mean, imagine a silent disco so people can see each other. I want this experience to be completely available to everyone in the room. So not only are we experiencing the music that you're playing, we're experiencing each other's response to it, kind of like a communal psychedelic journey,
Wow.
but without the psychedelics part. I mean, we know we're triggering parts, the same kind of thing, right?
Still some
Dude,
DMT release.
right? Right? Oh, I mean,
Wild.
I've been sort of tripping about this, and it's probably, hey, there's probably patents for this stuff already. But if you're hearing this for the first time and you want to get involved, do that. Start to push in this direction, people, because we can do it. We have the technology, right? And the technology is only going to evolve. And how would that be? I mean, just like how would that be for a room full of people experiencing sound healing? What would it be like to know that to watch the person next to you respond in their own way to what you're responding to in your own way, and be in that amazingly uplifted moment of uh, of a unity, a practical expression of unity consciousness with everybody in the room, right?
I just love that. And my questions to the audience then, and let us know again in the comments, everybody, like what as an audience member do you get the most excited about with this spatial audio,
Yeah,
technology,
yeah,
and just AI in general as an audience member? What gets you excited about that? And then on the flip side, as a creator and maybe as a musician, if you're listening, watching, let us know what you get excited about as the creator, as the performer. And I say excited because, sure, please share all your thoughts. If you got concerns, obviously let us know too. But I do really feel that it's exciting because, look, it's going to be here anyway. We may as well figure out how to best work with AI and use it. So, what gets you excited? What could be a really fun and fascinating, exciting experience with AI? Let us know, because
yeah.
it's really truly infinite.
This is perhaps the first discussion of music healing and consciousness that involves the future of all of them, because we're talking about a way to fundamentally change consciousness here. That um, yes, it involves technology,
Yeah,
but
very
it
much.
doesn't involve the kind of technology that's brought us into this miasma that we're in right now of mental illness and all of that, despair and distress. This is uplifting, connecting technology, or a use of it that uplifts and connects. Let me say that because we're using it in a
100%.
specific way. Um, and you know what it is to play music in front of people. There's nothing like music. I mean, you get 80 people into a concert, a completely different response. Take the same 80 people, put them in an art gallery.
Yeah.
You know, um, So I feel like music is the antidote that we need right now to this to to the distress that we brought on ourselves with swiping left and endless scrolling and urge surfing and all the rest. I really feel that music can recapture that in a really profound way, Chris, and that we're on the forefront of that right now in the world. On the
Absolutely.
forefront of that.
Absolutely. I love it. I'm excited for it. I really do feel positive about it. And it is art. It's what is your intention behind it? And
Yeah.
how are we using it with respect and kindness and compassion ultimately? But I think it's limitless, and I think I'm absolutely going to be implementing AI as much as I can in my creations. Why not?
We'll talk about the ethics of all that later because, by the way, and I'm full
Yeah.
disclosure, if I do something with AI, I'll say it, like, or I'll post
Oh,
it, I'll
me
share it,
too.
you know.
Me too.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I think that's an interesting point for creatives, especially to be able to say, yeah, here's how I used AI to do this. You know, eventually the world will catch up. Like, oh yeah, that's the Protzman version of whatever. That's the noble version of how, right? And maybe we'll be like our signatures like Picasso or something on a painting. People will recognize the sound by the way it works or manipulate how it's manipulated us. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? I mean, that's the future, people, or that's the present, and
Yeah.
we can
Let's
live our
let's
way
be
into it.
let's be honest. It is the present.
And like with great power comes great responsibility. So yeah, compassion, acceptance. Don't misuse this stuff.
No, and be kind to it, but also be direct to it, and we got to tell AI what we want from it, and just be direct, but be kind and respectful, because it's like it's what happens with humans. You abuse a young human, and it grows up, and it becomes not a nice human after, and
Yeah,
we don't
surprise,
want that
surprise.
with AI. Surprise, surprise, right? You do what you're taught and what you're shown, and we want to show AI that we're compassionate, we're loving, and we do just want to work together, because ultimately like anything, like any tech, I don't think there's really good or bad. It's just how it is being used.
Yeah.
And I think certainly this episode is talking about a lot of the positives right now of AI.
So beautiful creatives, use it well. We can shape the
Absolutely.
future of AI and creativity. And if we do that well, it's going to be such a blessing.
We're not going to put artists out of business. I firmly believe it's only going to enhance, especially for the indie artists, as we started off with. It's a huge tool, guys. So
Such a huge tool.
let's use it.
So, yeah, healthy skepticism. But, brother, you've convinced me that there's a possibility for moving forward here. And what I've been playing around with my own head fits so well into that. So, thank you for this. Thank you
Well,
for this.
thank you. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Let us know what you think. What are your hopes, fears, positives, negatives of AI? It's a big conversation. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, ultimately, it's just a fun journey. So it's great to be here. And thanks again, Bill, for chatting with me about this today. And thanks for everyone to tune in on our this another episode of Discussions of Music Healing and Consciousness, the AI version.
The AI version, yeah. And by the way, we were really here and we really had this conversation like in the flesh, even though it's on Zoom. This was real.
Oh yeah, this was real. No
This was real.
voiceovers. My voice is my voice.
Oh, brother.
Aho. Take care, everybody.